Hey, everybody, what's going on? It's Sunday. It's the end of the weekend. It's winding down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man.
You know Tom's about to lay down some shit.
Yeah. I'm going to tell a story.
He's going to tell a story.
Yesterday I was over at the down biker bar. Had this big ass fucking biker come in. His name's John. All right. He's about 6'5", 6'4". He's got this fucking long looking beard like that. He's up there at the bar with his wife, and I'm fucking running around behind him and shit. And he goes, "Hey, what's all this? What's all this?" Like he's going to be, that's my beard. He goes, "Ain't no beard. That's old kitty milk." I was like, "What?" "Yeah, I'm gonna get you a little saucer, put milk in a little drink out of saucer like a little kitty. That's kitty milk. That's a kitty milk beard. Kitty milk." I started fucking laughing. Kitty milk.
Yeah.
Kitty milk.
Well, nothing wrong with
So
kitty.
that's my name now, Kitty Milk.
Okay, I'm gonna.
No, that's not my name.
That.
Fucking Kitty Milk.
Well, now that you said it, I'm gonna call you
Kitty
that
milk.
anyway. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry to tell you.
Yeah. That little kitty milk thing. What do you call it?
That's really funny. What?
He said, yeah. saying my beard was not masculine enough.
Not manly enough.
Yeah, he's saying that shit was effeminate. It was like something for little kitties to drink out of milk out of the saucer.
Yeah, but he has like a big long beard, so why does he feel the need to like shit on other people? Because to me that speaks of insecurity.
He's just fucking with me. He started laughing.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So that's my story.
Tom Kitty Milk Ross. That's what we're gonna.
Kitty milk.
I kind of like that name.
Kitty milk. Yeah.
Danny Rowling said milk mustache or chocolate milk mustache. Yeah, so young Sherlock Holmes, you guys. Now, had you ever seen this movie? You had never seen this movie?
Yeah, I saw it.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I saw it a long time ago, but I didn't remember anything about it.
But you didn't remember. The weird thing about this is that I feel like, despite all of the talent behind this, and despite the fact that I saw this a million times when I was growing up, because it seemed like it was on cable all the time, it didn't really do all that well, like in the United States. And, I mean, it made its money back overseas, but I don't know. I feel like a lot of people don't really remember it, which is really weird because it's like a really good movie, I always thought.
I remembered it when I saw it. I was like, oh, yeah, I remember this one. And I remember not really liking it that much when it came out. Seeing it now, I was like, man, this is kind of like Indiana Jones. And she says, well, yeah, it's Steven Spielberg. And I was like, oh, okay.
Well, he produced it.
Yeah. And then I was like, it feels kind of like Indiana Jones a little bit. And then I said, and it's also kind of like, it's almost kind of like a prototype Harry Potter kind of a feeling to it. It's a high quality movie. You know, it's real well made. I don't know who did the score. Had a really good score.
It wasn't John Williams, but it was John Williams-esque.
Yeah.
I can't remember who did the score, but yeah. Well, I kind of feel, it was Amblin Entertainment. Like I said, that was Steven Spielberg's production company. Yeah. And they usually used John Williams, but I don't think they used him in this particular one. But they wanted something like John Williams-y. Yeah. To get that same feel to it.
A lot of it was like striking me to be kind of like Temple of Doom.
Yeah, it's almost like a Temple of Doom, but for a slightly younger audience. Yeah. But I will say that, I don't know, not that much of a younger audience, because I had actually forgotten. I thought it's kind of like a kid's, more like YA. I don't want to say it's like a kid's movie, but watching it, I had forgotten there's some pretty fucked up and nightmarish imagery in this, and people do get killed and shit like that too, which
they took that pretty chick, wrapped her up like a mummy and poured hot wax on her and killed her, I guess. You never found out what happened to her. And spoiler alert too, the main female character in this, Elizabeth, she dies also. She dies at the end. She gets shot. Yeah. Sacrifices herself for Holmes or whatever. So I don't know, and I feel like, and it was a time period too where, I mean, at least in the UK, there was a really successful Sherlock Holmes show on, I believe, in this, because this came out in 1985. Mm-hmm. So I don't really see why. I don't know. I think this maybe would have flown more nowadays. The weird thing about it is, back in the 80s, when they were thinking about doing this movie, it was very important to Steven Spielberg, who was producing, Chris Columbus, who wrote the screenplay, and also Barry Levinson, who directed it.
they were like really, really worried that Sherlock Holmes purists were going to get all over their shit because this is not a canonical Holmes story, obviously. Like, Holmes and Watson didn't meet each other until they were adults. So this is kind of like going, it's not canon. So they were like afraid that, people were going to get mad at them. So they went really out of their way to, consult different like Holmes experts and like have the script go through like all this kind of stuff. And I think they even went through like some of Arthur Conan Doyle's like family, like living family members, like to make sure it was okay with them and shit like that. So they really did try to be respectful of the character, which I thought was like actually pretty that was pretty admirable. But the weird thing about it is I feel like something like this, like a concept like this, would probably fly a lot better nowadays. You know what I'm saying? Where people are used to seeing fictional characters like put into different situations that aren't exactly like from the source material. So, I think you could probably do this now and not, because I think it has been done now, like Sherlock Holmes, like in weird other, fucking dimensions and shit like that. But back in the 80s, I guess that wasn't really a thing that you did. So I don't know if that was necessarily why people didn't respond to it the same way that they responded to other films of this ilk, but I don't know. Like I said, it's very much like Temple of Doom. It has like a very Temple of Doomy kind of storyline to it, and like you said, it is like a proto Harry Potter. I feel like, well, Chris Columbus, obviously he wrote did he direct the first 2 Harry Potter movies? I feel like, so maybe it could be that J.K. Rowling like saw this movie. I would imagine a lot of people did, and maybe it gave her an idea, because this is a very, very Harry Potter vibe to it, like boys' school, the whole kind of, and the fact that it's not supernatural, but because an aspect of the plot has to do with like a hallucinogenic drug that like this cult is using, so they have an excuse to show these kind of like fucked up like nightmarish images in it.
It's funny, I've only seen the first Harry Potter movie.
The first one is actually, the books are good. I actually quite liked the books. I thought they were entertaining. The first movie is a little too kid focused. The movies got a lot better once they got once the kids got older, and the books got better like later on too, because they got darker as the kids grew up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I saw it, and I wasn't impressed when I saw the first movie. But what I liked more about the first movie is later on they did a skit on Saturday Night Live where they had the damn girl from Harry Potter, and they're redoing Harry Potter, and she'd gotten implants. Remember that? And they had her in that real low cut thing. They're trying to do a Harry Potter ripoff, and all the characters are staring at her boobs while she's talking. Remember?
I didn't see it.
This is fucking hilarious, man. It was on Saturday Night Live. They were just kind of poking fun on the fact that that girl from Harry Potter not a fucking big rat.
Well, it's like she really did. Actually, most of the actors, well, all of the actors from Harry Potter that were like really, really young when they first started out, they were very young, like awkward little kids, and all of them like filled out nice. They looked really good when they got older. So
they were just kind of fucking with that. And but I thought it was pretty good. I remembered this. I remembered seeing this and thinking it was okay, but it didn't stick with me. It didn't stick with me the way, like, what year did this come out, actually?
85.
Yeah. See, it didn't stick with me the way Indiana Jones did or something. There's just something about it. I guess the cast was too young for me.
Maybe,
I didn't quite think it was cool
I guess, like I said, it was almost like a slightly YA version, because I guess the characters were supposed to be like 16, 17 years old. So they weren't kids.
Right.
They were like teenagers. So... And like I said, I was actually kind of surprised, because I had remembered that I saw this movie a lot, like in the 80s, but I had forgotten, and I kind of had a concept of it as more kid-focused, but seeing it again last night, I was like, oh, this is actually like a lot more horror-based than I remembered it being.
It's hard to believe this is 85. It seems a lot later, doesn't it?
It does.
It seems like it's a lot later. It seems like late 80s. Or early 90s.
It looks fantastic.
Yeah, it looks real good.
And fun fact, this was actually the first movie, this one right here, that had an entire CGI character. that stained glass knight that jumped out the stained glass window and like fought. That's the first time that ever happened. That was Industrial Light and Magic. Like the guy that later did Pixar, like formed Pixar, was the guy that did the animation on that, and it still looks good, I think, because it wasn't supposed to look natural. It was supposed to look like a knight that had jumped out was made of stained glass and was like moving around. So it still looks really good. And Murder Hornet pointed out, he said the pastry scene is the best. That is also my favorite scene, where they the three main characters, Holmes and Watson and Elizabeth, they get shot with the hallucinogen, and then they go in this cemetery and start having visions. And Elizabeth is actually really terrifying. She gets buried alive and all this other that's like fucked up and everything. But Watson, because the big joke is that he's not fat, but he's just like a little bit dumpy. So the funny thing is he's always like stuffing his face with like pastries and whatnot. So he has a hallucination that there's like a little bakery window, and then like all the little pastries like come to life, like their little Muppet eyes like pop up, and like they start jumping on him and cramming themselves in his mouth and stuff. And it was just, and then later on, like when he's actually eating like a cream horn or something, he's like talking to it. It's like super funny. But it's like, I don't know why I always thought that was really funny, but it's also like kind of creepy and disturbing, because seriously, what if you were tripping on LSD or something and you went like past a bakery shop and like all the fucking pastries came to life? You would fucking freak out. So it kind of reminded me of that. But yeah, so the story behind this, like I said, is that this was actually directed by Barry Levinson, who I don't think had done anything like this prior. I mean, he did Diner, he did The Natural, he did Good Morning Vietnam, which I love that movie, Bugsy, Wag the Dog, Rain Man. So it doesn't really seem like he would normally do this kind of movie, but I think he did a good job on it. And like I said, Chris Columbus wrote it. Obviously, he wrote The Goonies and Gremlins and directed Home Alone and Mrs. Doubtfire and all that kind of stuff. And so I kind of like... you were asking the guy that plays, the kid that plays Sherlock Holmes in this. Yeah. Nicholas Rowe. And he's actually been in a fuck ton of stuff since then. He's been on a ton of British TV. He was in a ton of movies. He was actually in Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, which I had totally forgotten about. That's a great movie, by the way. And he was also in Seed of Chucky, like one of the Child's Play movies. He's been in other movies, too. The funny thing, though, is that he actually played a version of Sherlock Holmes, but older, obviously, in 2015. There was a movie with Sir Ian McKellen that was called Mr. Holmes, and he played like a version of Sherlock Holmes in that. So I thought that was kind of funny that they like made a nod to that. But yeah, this has like a ton of really famous British actors in it. There's a great video on YouTube that I was watching earlier today where the girl was talking about all of she called it 6 Degrees of Sherlock Holmes, like all the British actors that were in this movie that had been in other Sherlock Holmes adaptations or like had something to do with other Sherlock Holmes adaptations. So that's like a really interesting thing to watch if you're like interested in that kind of stuff. But I just kind of liked the whole, Holmes being at boarding school, and then Watson comes there, and then they befriend one another, and then basically they uncover this plot that has to do with... Well, first, it just seems like a bunch of weird suicides, but Holmes thinks that they were probably murdered, but the cops don't want to know. But so he starts, like, investigating, and it turns out that there's this, like, weird Osiris-worshipping cult that they go around and, like... The person that's like their assassin, essentially, they have like this blowpipe and they go around like hitting their targets like with this hallucinogen, and then the hallucinogen usually causes them to like commit suicide or die in an accident. You know what I mean? Like they'll jump out a window or throw themselves in front of a carriage because they can't see what they're doing. So they do that kind of stuff. And like I said, their whole thing is they've been kidnapping girls and wrapping them in mummy wrapping and taking them down in this big fucking temple that they have, which that temple set's amazing, by the way. It still looks fantastic. All the costumes look great, too.
Kind of like an Egyptian version of Temple of Doom, kind of.
Yeah, it's very, very similar. It's like it doesn't have the whole, like, ripping hearts out and stuff, but it definitely has, hey, we're making living girls into mummies. Like I said, they wrap them all up and they drug them, and then they wrap them all up and lay them, and then they pour, like, hot wax, like hot paraffin, like, on top of them and kill them like that. So it's pretty fucked up.
Yep.
It's pretty fucked up. And like I said, because it has that whole plot thread of the hallucinogen then it has an excuse to like show these kind of like crazy hallucinations. There's actually like one sequence in there too that was a little bit like, kind of reminded me of like Ray Harryhausen. You know what I mean? Like where the one guy was in the antique shop and he saw like these little gargoyle things that started like flying around like all over him and stuff. So I don't know. I just really like that. I think at the time this didn't really get very good reviews, and I think it was because, I mean, Ebert liked it, but he was like, he's like, it's a little weird seeing like a Sherlock. I don't think people were used to seeing a Sherlock Holmes story, which is supposed to be like very grounded and logical, that had these like weird, like fantastical elements in it. And I think people were weirded out by that. Like I said, it's not weird nowadays because now they do all kind of crazy shit, like in crossovers and everything. But I think like back in the 80s, people weren't really used to seeing that. And maybe that's what it was.
I also remember back in the 80s, there was a lot of Sherlock Holmes stuff out on television and on cable that was playing.
Yeah.
And it tended to be dry and boring. So I think trying to bring Sherlock Holmes to the big screen in something kind of like a young Indiana Jones type setting, I think it was kind of hard to make Sherlock Holmes cool, I think, in the 80s. It just
maybe that's what it was.
It was kind of I remember thinking that was kind of some nerdy shit.
That's some nerdy shit right there, said young Tom.
Yeah. Yeah. See, dude, yeah, he reads books and shit. Yeah.
See, I wasn't bothered by that kind of thing because I was kind of nerdy.
Yeah, that's nerdy shit. Yeah, I think that's what it was. So
that didn't bother me.
No, it would have been better if they had made this an Indiana Jones movie and put Indy in it and everything.
They did. Well, didn't they do Young Indiana Jones Chronicles? That was a show that wasn't
Harrison Ford in that
Phoenix.
I'd have put Harrison Ford in that motherfucker and made it an Indiana Jones movie. Yep. And you could have kept a lot of the story the same. With the poison.
I mean, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, this is essentially like a similar like adventure type story. Yeah.
And you'd have had an adult in there with a gun and a whip and a hat, and you could have so you now have plausibility for bigger action scenes. And it's not in the Victorian era. It's like in the 40s, late 40s or the 50s, something like that. And it would have worked, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. But, I mean, they already had Indiana Jones, though. I can see how they were trying to go a different way with it and maybe skew slightly younger.
It would have made money, though.
Yeah, I mean, this did make money, but not in the U.S. Like, in the U.S., I think it just made its money back, but then, like, overseas, like, it made more money. Jeffy Art said, I watched this movie in school before Christmas break in the 5th grade. It was my gateway into the mythology of Sherlock Holmes. That and the episode of Star Trek, The Next Generation, Elementary Dear Data. Oh, I remember that one. I like your little monocle guy there, too. Yeah. I've never seen that emoji before. Then Jeffy Art said, I wonder if a factor could have been that the Victorian setting didn't make the mainstream appeal in the 1980s. It could have been that. Because I do kind of feel like the 80s, all of the movies that were iconic from the 80s, I feel like, very few of them were period pieces. Unless I'm thinking... Well, I guess Indiana Jones was, but... Sort of.
I don't think the Victorian era was the problem, because then you just look at Harry Potter. It has that feel to it. It looks like this movie.
Even though Harry Potter is the modern day.
But it's still, you know what I mean, when they're in these weird fucking schools and shit, it looks kind of Victorian, and their outfits kind of look a little bit Victorian. But they've added magic to it.
Yeah.
Fucking flying brooms and shit. And that sold like hotcakes.
It did.
Yeah. More action and stuff. Matter of fact, I didn't just see the first one. I saw the other one. It was like a spin-off. Remember, we saw it in the theater. We reviewed it.
Oh yeah,
some bad guys.
I think that was Fantastic Beasts. Yeah, that's kind of that's like like Crimes of Grindelwald or whatever. Yeah, that's like an offshoot.
It's like it was like that.
Which I didn't read those. I read the Harry Potter books, but I haven't read any of the extra canonical.
And I'm in a theater full of these damn fucking nerds and shit. They're all dressed up. I have no idea about any of this.
Well, now see, I didn't read any of those. I didn't read any of the Fantastic Beasts books.
Yeah, but it was an enjoyable movie.
It was alright, but I didn't really know.
I had no idea what was going on. Really.
I knew who some of the characters were, but that's about it.
Just watching it.
I was like, whatever.
Yeah, I was the same.
It's like, oh yeah, I think isn't that the guy that's like the dad of that other guy or something like that?
Yeah,
like,
and they're all oohing and on, like they know these characters.
Well, they do. They do.
I know. I'm just saying, they're all oohing and on, and I'm like, going, yeah.
Like I said, I'm a lot more familiar with the Harry Potter universe because I've actually read all of those. But this, and it's just interesting to me, and I had forgotten too because it was interesting to me how Harry Pottery this movie was. It is very Harry Pottery. Like, because, and even shit, the kid that plays Watson even kind of looks like Harry Potter. Like, he's got the glasses and the hair, and it's just like, and it's a very Harry Pottery kind of story. And there's like even 3 of them. It's two boys and a girl, you know, and they're kind of like personalities aren't exactly the same. It's not quite the same dynamic.
See, it wasn't the Victorian look that held this back, I don't think. Harry Potter has that same look. It did well. Yeah. And Harry Potter would have done well in 85, I think. It would have done real well.
It didn't get written until much later. Yeah, but I think so I'm kind of feeling that maybe J.K. Rowling was using... Well, I don't know if it's so much that, because I don't even know if it's so much like a ripoff, like Harry Potter universe being a ripoff of this. I think it's just so much that the whole boarding school culture in the UK, like the whole school culture, it kind of lends itself to that sort of entertainment. So I don't even know if stuff... I mean, I'm not from... I've lived in the UK for a little while, but, you know, I'm not from there originally. So I don't know if maybe it's just... That's just part of the British school culture, and so that's why stuff like that keeps coming out in movies, and it's not necessarily that one thing is ripping off the other thing. But, I mean, there are some shots in this, like particularly the one shot... where all the boys are like at dinner, and obviously like this is, you know, it's by candlelight because it's Victorian era. It's not magic like in the Harry Potter one. It's like all these like floating candles and it's all like magic-y and shit, but it's very similar like the way it's shot. You know what I'm saying? Like you can tell that... I know that Chris Columbus didn't direct this, but he did write it, and he did direct the first 2 Harry Potter movies, so you can definitely see the connection there, you know what I mean? It is very much like that. And even though this doesn't have quote unquote magic in it, it does have hallucinations in it. And it does have like a lot of horror imagery, like I said, because especially when... I think the scariest one is like Elizabeth's her hallucination, because like I said, it happens, it's almost like a fucking Ebenezer Scrooge, you know, Ghost of Christmas Future kind of shit going on, and it's like pretty, like with a fucking dead zombie like skeleton thing, like, you know, carving her name into a headstone and shit like that, which I thought was like so fucking cool, like back in the 80s, because I love that kind of shit.
Danny's requesting haunting episode Echoes from the Grave.
Now, did we do that one already?
I thought we did it.
I thought we did that one. I'll check, and if we didn't, then we'll do that one. Yeah. But
if not, maybe we can do the fucking crazy one about the fucking mummy.
The one about the mummy?
Yeah.
We need to save one for Halloween.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll save that for Halloween.
But, I mean...
The mummy.
Like I said, we can do... Because, like I said, next Monday is Halloween. So, we can do, like, an episode of a haunting, but we can also just kind of do, like, a regular Sidetracks Halloween special type thing. You know, just all together. So, I'm not too worried about it, I guess. It'll be sort of freewheeling. But I thought we had done Echoes from the Grave, though.
We can check.
I'm gonna have to go back and check. I mean, I'm pretty sure that we did that, but maybe not.
I know that title. I just can't remember which episode.
We've made that joke like a million times. It's like their titles are so
the titles are all about the same.
I picture.
Like, which one is that?
You know those, like, they used to, I don't know if they still sell these or not, but they used to have those little box sets you could buy them at bookstores and stuff, and it was kind of like called the magnetic poem set or whatever, and it would just have like all these different words like on little magnets, and you put them on your fridge and you could rearrange them, like to make poems with. I kind of feel like there's a haunting specific box of that, and then they just have a fridge in the break room at the haunting production company, and they just keep moving it around. It's just like, this one says grave and death and demon and blah blah blah. They just like move the fucking words around, you know what I mean? Yeah, Robbie Coltrane died. That sucks. Yeah, he's awesome. I loved him.
I don't remember who that was.
You'd know him if you saw him. He's been in a million things. Danny Rowling says, Gary Oldman and David Thewlis cast as werewolves in the third Harry Potter Prisoner of Azkaban was a great idea. Yeah, I think after the third one, like, they got much better. Because, I mean, the books, too. Because, you know, once it got into, like, the fucking Dementors and all that kind of stuff, like, that was, like, super scary. And that was, like, way better than... Because the first couple movies, like I said, they were still kids, so they couldn't do anything, like, too fucking crazy. But once they got older and they were getting to, like, 17, 18 years old, then, like, people were, like, getting fucking killed left and right. And I mean, the Harry Potter books, say what you will about them, but they did have a pretty high body count. Like, a bunch of people got fucking killed in that shit. And some of this stuff was, like, super, super scary. Danny Rowling said, you did Echoes from the Past recently. But I don't know that you did Echoes from the Grave. Okay, so maybe that's what it is. I'm thinking of Echoes from the Past, and then there's a different one called Echoes from the Grave. Right? So, okay, so...
I don't remember which one Echoes from the Grave.
Well, I don't either, but that's what, like I said, that's what we were saying. We don't, know. Mm-hmm. We don't know. But...
You got Echoes from the Ground. Echoes from Hell.
Echoes from your ass.
Echoes from you. Starring Belladonna.
No, that's My Ass is Haunted.
Yeah, well, it's the sequel.
It's the sequel.
It's the sequel. Yeah.
You think I'm kidding, but she did actually make a porno movie called My Ass is Haunted.
Yeah.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah. My ass is possessed. It's like a BDSM one.
Oh my God, Echoes from your ass. That's like
my ass is empty.
Ew.
Yeah.
That's kind of gross.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. They'd make a movie about that, though.
Well, yeah, I kind of feel like they make a movie about anything as far as porn is concerned. They don't have Rule 34 for nothing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was actually this is Young Sherlock Holmes is actually on YouTube for free with ads. So if you've never seen it, or if you saw it a long time ago when you were a kid, and you want to see it again, I would recommend watching it again, because it was actually, I remembered it being really good, but it was actually much better than I remembered, and it aged really well. I think the special effects still look good. Mm-hmm. The fucking costumes really look, the sets look really good. Because Tom was watching, he's like, man, this is a classy flick. And I was like, yeah, it is a classy flick. And like I said, it's got tons and tons of really well-known British character actors in it. And I don't know, I just thought it was always I always thought it was a cool movie. And it just baffled me that, I mean, I didn't know at the time, because I saw it on cable. I don't think I saw this in the theater. I didn't know at the time that it wasn't super, super successful, or that it wasn't all that critically, because I don't really care about that. But when I was reading about it now, they said, yeah, it didn't really do all that well. It didn't get shit on or anything, but people were just kind of meh. And I just wondered why, because everybody involved in this, all of their other shit was super, super successful. So
production quality is about like an Indiana Jones movie.
It's
a top-notch movie.
Uh-huh. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I don't really know. And it's weird too, because I feel like movies of this kind and from this era, it seems like every single one of them has a cult following, and I don't know if this one does. I mean, I'm sure it does, but I don't think it has the same huge cult following as some other 80s movies from this era, like The Goonies or something like that.
There was a lot of Goonies vibe of this, in a way. It's more serious.
Well, it's the same writer.
Yeah.
It's the same writer as, that wrote The Goonies. But obviously this is Victorian era and not modern day, but you can tell that it was kind of and I think, too, the script, because Chris Columbus is American, obviously, but the script was run through a British novelist, to make it sound British. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you see that, because I've seen it the other way too. But a lot of times, if you have a British writer who's writing an American movie, or vice versa, sometimes it'll be fine, but then they'll use this really odd turn of phrase that a real American and or British person wouldn't use. And then you're a British person wrote this, because an American person wouldn't say that. But at least on this one, they did have the wherewithal to kind of run it through a British guy, a novelist, and a Sherlock Holmes expert, to make sure that it was copacetic and that it was all canon, you know what I mean? Well, at least as canon as it could be. And even at the beginning and the end, it had messages yeah, we realize this isn't based on Arthur Conan Doyle's work. It's based on his characters and stuff. But, this is just a fun, respectful kind of outside thing that we're doing. So we just hope you enjoy it, blah, blah, blah. So they really did take pains to not offend anybody, I guess. Because, those Sherlock Holmes fans would just gather up their pitchforks and shit like that. Danny Rowling said we should do the Night Flyer for Tuesday. We might, although, did I look for it and I found it hard to find? I was going to do that, or I might do that George Romero movie Bruiser that one of you guys mentioned, which I had never even heard of, because I saw that was free somewhere too. And I was so we might do that, or we could do the Night Flyer too if I can find it. It's on YouTube. Did somebody put it on YouTube, legally, illegally? I'm not really sure. Oh, and Pat Hatfield, I wanted to mention this too. This movie could have also been the first, or at least one of the first, examples of an after-credit sequence. Yeah, I think this might have been... I'm sure there was one earlier than this, But yeah, if you're watching this movie, watch all the way. It's just like it's like a Marvel movie because you have to watch all the way to the end of the credits. There's a little Easter egg at the end, and it was kind of like setting up a sequel, because the thing about it was that even though in the US this is called Young Sherlock Holmes, in the UK and in other countries it was called Young Sherlock Holmes and the Pyramid of Fear. So it's clear that if this was successful, they were thinking of making it a series. And the fact that it had that after credit sequence, like introducing Moriarty, essentially, like the main big bad, it seemed like they were trying to set up a series. But because it didn't do as well as they hoped, then that never happened. But I kind of feel like you could do a reboot of this nowadays. Although maybe people are sick of Sherlock, because I think, what is there, like 5 Sherlock Holmes fucking shows on right now?
Played out. Yeah.
I mean, people are still watching them, so I guess like they like it. But I think there's a couple British ones, there's a couple American ones, there's an interdimensional one. Yeah. You know what I mean? That it's like
comedies that failed.
Well, that was terrible. Yeah. That was a terrible movie. That was a terrible movie. Pat Hatfield said, "I agree. The Night Flyer is great." Okay, well, I'll look for that then. Like I said, I was thinking about doing Bruiser, the George Romero, but if I can find Night Flyer, we'll do that instead. But tomorrow we're gonna do A Haunting, and I guess we're gonna do Echoes from the Grave, not Echoes from the Past.
If we haven't done it, right? Yeah.
He said we'd done Echoes from the Past, but I'll look. I'll look.
Okay.
If we haven't done Echoes from the Grave, then we'll do it.
If you can't Google it, you can't find it on the search, then we guess we didn't do it.
Yeah. Okay. We don't know. We don't remember.
Yeah.
We don't know what we're doing.
We can't remember all this shit.
We don't know what we're doing half the time, obviously. It's just such a ramshackle operation. That's all right, though. All right, so we're going to wrap it up for today because, man, I did not get much sleep last night. I'm fucking exhausted. Although I got a lot done today. I got like 3 or 4 videos done today, so I'm kind of proud of myself. But, you what?
And I got to put the garbage out tonight.
That's right, you do.
I forgot last time.
Yeah, somebody said, like, because I'm on the little, Black Bear Reserve neighborhood board. Yeah. They said that nobody had collected their garbage for 7 weeks.
No shit.
I'm like, where the fuck you live? Do they live in this neighborhood? They came and got the garbage the other day, didn't they?
Maybe they're at the end of a road or something, and the truck is missing.
Because I was like, maybe they
7 weeks of garbage just piling up.
I guess I was like, maybe they just don't like you.
Yeah.
I don't remember going 7 weeks and them not picking the garbage up. I would have noticed.
Oh, of course.
That's what I'm saying.
Weeks.
I mean, I just went out. I just went out there like the other day and put a bag in there, and it wasn't even full. So it's like they must have been here.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I'm like, what? I don't know where that person lives. They said they're supposedly live in this neighborhood, but I don't know like what part of this neighborhood they live at. Maybe they like live behind something and they keep missing their house. I don't know. But yeah, so have a good rest of your weekend, you guys. And we'll be back tomorrow doing A Haunting. And so just be sure to drop by then, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow. Bye.